Hola mi gente, welcome to La Vida es Una podcast, a space where we have authentic and honest conversations about life experiences.
We are your hosts, Dante,
and Itzel.
And today we're going to be talking about a very important topic, which is work-life balance.
Let's talk a little bit about what is work-life balance. What is it? What does that mean to you, Dante?
To me, work-life balance is about being able to spend equal or more time outside of work, doing things that I'm personally interested or passionate about, such as hanging out with friends, playing an instrument, doing videos, having fun with family. So being able to do that while also not having to work all the time, right?
Yeah.
I think for me, it's something I'm working on. I think early on, I learned that, I thought that I had to work all the time and I wouldn't spend or make time doing things outside of work, right? I would spend more time in doing work or in school than in investing in relationships with my friends and doing things outside of work. So to me, work-life balance is about getting better at allocating time outside of work and building a fulfilling life that is not always tied to a job.
Yeah.
So, what does work-life balance mean to you?
I think for me, it means prioritizing my personal life over my work, because I think nowadays we have placed so much emphasis on working all the time. I think during the pandemic, for me, it got a lot worse. Like we worked all the time during the pandemic because we were inside all day, and not being able to step away from work has led me to think about work-life balance. And in corporate America, I think there's a lot of burnout, and thankfully we've started talking more about mental health and actually prioritizing that in our physical health, our emotional, spiritual, mental health over just producing all the time. So I think for me, it just means having a life outside of my job and not making it all about work.
Yeah, I think you touched on something very important, which is working all the time. And I think that is something that I think a lot of people struggle with.
Yeah.
Right? I think where do we first learn that? Right? And for me, that's where, when I think about my childhood and growing up, I think I first learned to work a lot or prioritize work over personal life when I was in elementary school.
Yeah.
And that's where they introduced this idea of the perfect attendance certificate. I don't know if you also had that as well.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah.
Yeah, and this certificate, you would also get it in middle school. You will also get it in high school. I don't think colleges do that, but it was a reward mechanism, now that I think about it, that teaches us, especially as little kids, to potentially prioritize school, which later on in life may turn out to prioritize work over our personal lives, right? I remember as a kid, I was scared, to miss a day in school, right? I think even now to this day, sometimes I'm even anxious to put a PTO or pay time off request, right? Or to take vacation or to take a sick day, right? And I think part of it comes from that early childhood experience of trying to get that perfect attendance certificate and being rewarded for putting work over my health, which is something that I'm working on. I think you mentioned during the pandemic, a lot of people did spend more time working just by the nature of not having to commute. The problem of overworking got amplified. And I think now, at least for us, I think we're starting to work on striking a better balance between work and our personal life. Yeah. And I think you also mentioned something very important, which is prioritization, right? Prioritizing your personal life over your work life, which I do think requires lots of work. And so I'm curious to hear on your end, what has helped you prioritize personal life over work life?
Yeah, I do want to go into that. Let me just say before I jump into that, I don't think everyone can do that though. I do want to be mindful that people have to work a lot of jobs sometimes to help their family. So I think maybe this concept of work-life balance, everyone should be able to have some sort of balance in their life and not have work be their entire life, right? I don't know who said this, but it's like you live you work to live, you don't live to work.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that's not the case for everybody.
Yeah.
Like, my mom worked 2 jobs to keep us going when we were kids.
Right.
The concept of work-life balance to her is like, what is that? Like, that doesn't even exist.
Yeah.
Because there's no other alternative.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think given the system in place, right? Capitalism, right? I do think work-life balance is not accessible to everyone, right? And we live kind of in a world of expectations of unequal opportunity, right? So that's a really good point that you bring up.
I think the reason I wanted to talk about this topic is that this past week was really rough. I was on call for work, which means that I basically have to be available whenever something breaks, and I have to be the one to respond and fix it and help get others involved to help resolve that issue. There was multiple issues this week, and I just worked like all day. And even when I wasn't working and we still hadn't solved those issues, I still had to think about work. And so this was one of those weeks where there was such an emergency at work and I couldn't step away from it. And that's when it made me realize, I really need to figure out how to bring some balance into my life, because this is manifesting physically for me. Like, I got headaches. I wasn't sleeping well. Do you remember when this happened?
Yeah.
I was thinking about work, going anxious to bed, waking up anxious because the issue still hadn't been resolved. And my stomach was hurting. It felt, I know it sounds kind of silly, but it almost felt like the world was ending. I don't know if that makes sense, but I just felt like I couldn't see beyond last week because every day was so difficult at work. It was so stressful, and I just couldn't think beyond the stress. In that moment, I felt like the anxiety and stress was going to stay with me forever.
Yeah.
And what I did to relax, I had to just go outside, take a walk, because I needed to detach from my workplace, from the room where I'm constantly stressed, and from the environment. And I kind of it almost feels like I want to run away sometimes when I'm so stressed out like that.
Yeah.
When I cannot have that balance in my life.
Yeah. No, you touched on many important things. I think one thing that, as you were talking about being on call and constantly thinking about work, even after work ends, quote unquote, assuming, you work 8 to 5 and after 5 p.m., that's when you're off work, right? One thing that it's important to note is that we're not paid on the time we're spent thinking about work, right? And if we were, everyone would kind of be millionaires, right?
Wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah, because I think, for me, I'm going to bed and then immediately some thoughts come to my head. Hey, I forgot to send this email, or hey, I forgot to call this person, or hey, I forgot XYZ.
I have this meeting tomorrow.
Yeah, and that's anxiety, and then that's kind of manifesting because I'm thinking about the future.
Yeah.
Right? And it's anxiety manifesting in itself, but what's the topic? It's work, right? And it's, 10, 11 p.m., I'm trying to fall asleep, but work is interrupting my personal life.
Yeah.
My rest, my sleep, which is very important, right? And so just wanted to call that out as you were talking about how you physically felt like kind of like the world was ending. You couldn't see beyond that week. I felt that as well. And I do want to hear more from you, like what helped you navigate that scenario, because I'm pretty sure there's a lot of people, including myself, who may be feeling that right now, may have felt that in the past, or at some point they're going to feel that. So what kind of helped you get through that rough moment?
So it's so funny, but I think it always helps to have a good cry. I think, for me at least, when I have so much stress in my body, it's all pent up energy, anxiousness, stress, and it really just helps to cry sometimes. I think a really good shower also calms me down. What gets me out of that negative headspace, or at least detaches me from my work, is going to the park on walks, going running, going bicycling. Last week, what we also did that really helped, I told you, like right after work, when at least for a brief moment of time before I had to come back and deal with the issues, was, hey, let's go get something like sweet. Let's go get some food, because we didn't even have time to cook last week. It was so stressful for both of us.
Yeah.
So going out to get like boba or like flan or any dessert that we like, I think that always makes me feel like a little bit of love, like self-love from you, from me. I think it's really important in that week to show my self-love. Like, hey, I'm trying to take care of you. I know right now it's really stressful because you can't get away from work for whatever reason, but I'm thinking of you. Like, I'm thinking of myself, that I care for you, and I hope that you're not in this state all the time. Yeah. Like, it helps to get it from you, from your partner, from your family, but being kind to myself, like, helps. But I do need to physically be in another space, and that's what helps me. What about you?
You know, someone once told me that this, which still sticks to me, which is treat yourself in both good and bad times, right? And you just mentioned that, right?
Yeah.
It's simple, right? Like, if you are having a really hard day, right? Go out of your way, make time to do something that you love to do, or get a small treat, like whether that's a muffin, or you like coffee, or, you know, you like a salad, right? Go get that. A Chipotle burrito,
it doesn't have
right?
to be healthy. Like,
it doesn't have to be healthy.
Stuff.
It could be, you know, an In-N-Out hamburger, right? It could be a treat, right?
Some tacos.
Yeah. Absolutely. Like, just get something that you love, right? And that little thing is a little investment in yourself. It's going to make you feel lots better. For me, I think going on a run.
Yeah.
Like you mentioned, like, hey, you know, sometimes I just want to run away from my problems. That's how I feel sometimes after work. And so to really clear my head, I go on runs or I go on a walk, right? Around the neighborhood, around the park. I think other things that have helped me is, you know, listening to music.
Yeah, I agree.
Like putting on my headphones, or if not, just blasting it from my phone, but a few special songs that I really love. Maybe even singing to them. That helps me a lot too, because literally I'm taking my headspace away from thinking about work to getting my creative juices flowing and resetting. Yourself. Exactly. I think also if you can, right, going to a gym and exercising. I think that's important.
Exercise for sure.
Yeah. So those things I would say, you know, treating yourself with something you really love. Yeah. Doesn't need to be healthy, like you said. Number 2, I would say doing some sort of activity, running, going to a park, going to a gym. And then 3, I would say listening to music. You know, put on your favorite song and sing to it, pretend you're at karaoke and do it. I think those kind of 3 things have helped me really clear my head before I kind of go back to thinking about work and problems related to work.
Also, though, as you were talking, some other things that really help is talking to my friends about it. Just like releasing it really helps. Also talking to my mom or my family, getting some love from them also really helps. And dancing to music. I think there's something so spiritual about dancing. Like releases me emotionally, spiritually, and physically makes me happy. I don't know. There's something about dancing that's special for me. I also just want to say that if you're going through like a rough week, like I was a couple days ago, or if you're in a job that is a difficult one, be kind to yourself, take care of yourself, whatever you need. I hope that you're able to provide for yourself or seek it out if you can't have access to it around you. Just be gentle, because life can get really difficult, and it was really hard last week. Like I was telling you, right? Like I was having a really hard time, and it was really stressful, and I would wake up like super anxious, super stressed out. And I know it's not always like that, and it's like waves, right? Some weeks are really stressful. Some weeks are really chill. Some weeks are really good at work.
You know, you're not alone in this journey, even though it can be challenging. It can feel lonely. Some things that helped as well is thinking back about where you came from and then where you are today. Yeah, right? That helps too. And all the work, sacrifices you, your family, others have made. I think that helps. One
thing that I wanted to share that is so funny to me, and every time I call my mom, we laugh about it, because I remember before graduation day, I said, oh, okay, so I'm gonna graduate. Yeah, and I think I don't have to work anymore.
Wouldn't that be nice?
My mom just started laughing. She's like, oh, really? She's like, yeah. I was like, yeah, I mean, I graduated. I put in all the work. I was like, I worked so hard for how many ever years I needed to work to graduate college. And I was like, yeah, so like, what happens now? And she's like, oh, I'm sorry, mija, like, you're gonna have to work. I was like, what? It's like, yeah. I was like, why? Like, I already put in the work.
I already spent many years in education.
Sacrificed my entire time as like a 18, 21-year-old. And she just laughed at me because I did not expect. I think that was, what is it called? A quarter life crisis?
Yeah.
At 21 years old. I know that sounds silly, but I didn't, like, none of my family had gone to college, and I didn't know what to expect after. So I didn't know that we were going to have to work for the rest of our lives. I mean, I saw my mom work, so I don't know why I didn't think that I had to work for the rest of my life, but I honestly just didn't, that realization hit me. And I got so sad. I was like really sad for like a week.
Yeah. No, that's funny. I mean, if you think about it, right? Like, every time you graduate from high school or middle school or college or some sort of certificate program, right? You get, you graduate, and graduation is a certificate or a ticket to kind of go into, no, it's like a ticket to go into the corporate world or like to start working, right? You're getting a ticket to your next job, right?
That's true.
So it's like a never ending type of process.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's funny. I didn't even think about it like that.
It's like, hey, well done. You accomplished several years of sacrifice and hard work. Now, here's your reward. More work. Work-life balance is a process, right? I think for me, it's something that I'm still working on and trying to get better at prioritizing my personal life. I think it takes time. Like, it's normal and it's okay to take a day off if you're not feeling your best.
Yeah.
Right? I know that's not something that's accessible to everyone, right? But I think if you can, right, and you're not feeling your best, you should take that day off.
Yeah.
To get better, to rest up.
Yeah.
I think we shouldn't give our health for granted. I think it's our battery, it's our energy, it's the only thing that we have to keep us going in this world, right? So our health does come first. And I think even though we may have learned from society, from school, from our ancestors, like, hey, hard work, you have to always work really hard and work, and then you'll get rewarded. I think we also need to unpack that.
I think you said something that I like to expand on, like unlearning what we know and these expectations that have been set maybe by like our families, society, maybe passed down in each generation. Two of the things that I'm remembering right now is, if you work hard, you'll succeed. A message that has been spread across society that basically says, if you work, that's going to make you successful. And who doesn't want to be successful? Who doesn't want to have a good life? But another part of it is, I don't think I remember my mom taking days off for her health. Going back to, some people just you can't take off time from work.
Yeah.
Because you have family to take care of. You have maybe family in other parts of the country to take care of. And so that's almost like a luxury to take a day off, right? So what I'm getting at is, if you didn't grow up seeing that kind of behavior, like, hey, I'm not feeling well today, it's okay if I don't go to work, then it's really hard for you to say, it's okay for me to take a day off because I'm not feeling well. So instead of pushing through the day or pushing through the week, which is, I think, what we most commonly do, right?
Yeah.
It's like, I don't feel that bad. We try to excuse it as, yeah, I'm not feeling well, but, I can still work. And we just work anyway, because what's the excuse here? I work from home, right? I can still be on my laptop, but in reality, like I'm really not feeling well, but I still push through it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's because I think I saw my mom push through really hard days and really hard moments in her life that she was going through, and she still worked. So why can't I?
It's in a way like it's generational to some point, right? It's getting, these learnings or behaviors are getting passed down from our family members, from friends, from coworkers, you know, where necessarily it may not be the right thing or the right choice, but it's getting passed down. So for us, we think of that's the right way of approaching these situations when that may not be actually true.
Yeah, and I just want to say, like, if you're somebody who's going through a hard time right now, like I said, either you're not feeling well in any aspect of your life, and you really feel like you wish you could take some time off. If you really need it, like, please do take it off. And I just want to say that I'm the type of person that almost needs like permission to take time off. And I don't know why, but I do feel a lot better. Like, even when I'm taking time off, I ask you, Dante, like, hey, do you think it's okay if I take time off? You're like, yeah, like, if you need it, if you need.
And I do the same. I think it's important to talk about that concept of permission, asking for permission to take a day off. You shouldn't ask for permission. You should instead say, just say, hey, I'm taking the day off, right?
Yeah. Instead
of saying, hey, can I take a day off?
I know. Take back some of that power, like take back control of your life. And I think that's another aspect of it. And every time you ask for time off is you request and like almost ask permission, where it's like, dude, it's your life. Like, you know, we're adults. We should feel comfortable doing whatever we want with our life, with our time, with taking days off for ourselves and not feel that guilt.
Yeah. Yeah, it's your life. Again, we're not tied to where we work, right? And even though it may feel that way, right? Know that you should come first, and then two, I think we're not owned by our companies, right?
Yeah, it's such an interesting behavior, and I definitely want to work on that, but I don't know why I feel the need to ask for permission. Just to get like that validation, like you saying, hey, yeah, it's fine, take it off if you're not feeling well. That's all I need. But I'm pretty sure it has something to do with the fact that we asked our parents permission all the time growing up. And so now as adults, it's like, maybe not everybody feels this way, obviously, but I think I do need somebody to give me permission sometimes to do certain things. And like one of those is just taking time off.
You know, I think we're getting into capitalism, you know, from a systemic view, is like you kind of have to work to earn your time off. And I think that's, in my opinion, that's really messed up.
Like you have to earn time for yourself.
Yeah, it's terrible. And I think it goes back to what you said, right? Which is, in a sense, in this capitalist system, I think work-life balance is a luxury. It's something that you have to work for when that shouldn't be the case.
That's terrible. I really just want to share some love, because I know that in those moments, I just recently experienced it. So it's very fresh in my mind. It feels terrible. It feels like you literally live to work, to be productive, to get out as much as you can. It's like, and maybe it's the system, right? Maybe it's the expectations that society has set, that you have to be productive all the time, that you have to churn out results. And if you don't, then there's something wrong with you. But I just want to say that there is nothing wrong with you. You're not supposed to be productive all the time. I think that's just part of the system that we live in. But as you were saying, like our ancestors didn't live that way. They didn't need to produce. They just enjoyed the land. They enjoyed their life. And that doesn't define your worth. It doesn't. And I forget that. Of course I forget during those really stressful weeks. But I just want to give everyone a big hug, because it's rough out there. And I just want to say, that your productivity does not define your worth. Right?
Yeah. Take care of yourself. Take it easy. One day at a time. One thing that has really stood out to me over the last year or year and a half, and this is very vivid, very visceral, very easy to see now. Before it was harder to see for me, at least. I have a lot more clarity now, but we both work in tech, and there's been so many layoffs over the last year and a half, and it all started also during the pandemic, right? We saw initial round of layoffs last year. Thousands of people lost their jobs, and it was maybe in tech we saw that a lot, but it also happened in other industries, right? This year now with the bank as well, we're seeing, or we're also seeing in other industries lots of layoffs, right? And these are thousands of people who may have a family, kids. They may be renting or have a home, having to pay bills, right?
Taking care of everyone.
Taking care of their family members, right? Maybe working multiple jobs, who are losing their primary form of income, or who are losing their job, right? And that is terrible. But what I'm seeing, what I've learned is that the way the system is that we may just be a number to these companies, right? We're just employee number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? And now we know, right, more clear than ever, that in a way they easily think of us as they can replace us, right? They can fire us one day, and then the next day they'll find someone else, right? Or they call these cost reduction mechanisms, right? We're just a number. So I think that is why it's important to reiterate that we should, build a life outside of work and not tie our value, not tie our purpose to work. I think there's also lots of bad advice around finding a fulfilling life. I remember in college, like, people would say, hey, find a job where you can mix your passion with your job, right? Passion and purpose, that's something that you should look for in a company or in a culture, right? And that's very idealistic, right? At the end of the day, a job is a job, right? A job is a means to an end, right? It's a paycheck or multiple paychecks to pay off your bills and to live your life. And so that's important to really reflect on, right? That regardless of how idealistic or how nicely they may paint a picture, right, at your job, that we hear this a lot, like, oh, our company is changing the world, and we see that in so many vision statements and mission statements from these companies, especially nowadays. But now with all the layoffs that have been happening, I'm really starting to see how people think and treat their employees, right? And there's a quote that says, true character from either an organization or a person does show in the hard times, right? And right now, when it's really challenging, like we have inflation, the economy's not doing so well, we are seeing that employees and companies are not there during these hard times. They're actually laying people off. Just something that I wanted to kind of share, that I've seen recently, and that is more clear to me now than it was before.
Yeah. As you're talking about this, one thing we've chatted about previously is how much my identity was tied to work. Remember, I shared this?
Yeah.
And for a long time, I felt that if I wasn't good at my job, then I wasn't good in general, because my job was such an important part of my identity. And I've definitely seen a progression over the years that I've been working. Since we graduated, it's been 6 years now. In the early 1, 2, 3 years, I worked all the time. And I was so proud of my work. My work was my identity. All I wanted to do was be involved in that space and just get better. Of course, I was starting off my career, which makes a lot of sense, right? We all put in a lot of work in the early years of our career. And then as the years progress, like, you get more comfortable with your skills, you get better at your job, you get more comfortable with the systems, and you just get more familiar with everything. So you don't necessarily have to put in so much more work into getting better at your job.
Mm-hmm.
But in the last couple of years, I think there's a transition, right? From year 1 to 3, all you do is work. Mm-hmm. That was my experience. Then year 4 and year 5, I was getting more comfortable. And now I'm realizing, like, I don't want work to be my entire identity. Like, I want to have a life outside of this. Have hobbies. Like, in the first couple years of my professional life, I didn't have any hobbies. Yeah. And it was so embarrassing. People would ask me, like, so what do you like to do for fun? And I was like, fun. I mean, all we did was work. And in the weekends, we would go to the office to work. And I know a lot of people do that to this day. Yeah. So there's nothing wrong with that if that's, that's what you want to do in your weekend. Mm-hmm. But I didn't know an alternative to that. So as you were talking about this, the training and how we learned to always work is, of course, like education, school teaches us to work all the time. Mm-hmm. In high school, you have to work so hard to get into a good college. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. If that's the path you decide to take. Mm-hmm. In college, we worked all the time. Literally, school was your life. So almost 24/7, you had to just be studying, doing homework. And yeah, of course, like
applying to internships, scholarships, maybe working as well.
And you did know about internships because, that information isn't always available. But that's yes, right. You have to be on all the time. And so going into the workplace, that's all you know. Mm-hmm. All you know is that you have to work all the time to do good and to be good at something. So then that becomes your life. But now you're an adult. Like, this is your actual life. Yeah. You don't have to be working all the time like you did in school.
You mentioned something, that really resonated with me, which is like in the first few years when you start working, we're taught maybe that we have to work really hard. Mm-hmm. And so, there was this idea, I remember someone told me once, it's like, you gotta be the first person in the office and also the last one to leave, right? So you need to be the hardest worker in the room to succeed, to get promoted. Yeah. And that's actually not the best advice, I would say, right? Especially when it comes to work-life balance, that's kind of the opposite, right? Because if you're trying to really take care of your health, right, and be well mentally and emotionally, if you're working all the time, your health is it's going to impact your health, right? Yeah. I think another terrible advice, this was at a seminar that, I went to, and this was a leader at a company, and he said, hey, the best advice I have for you all college grads is that you should never sleep. Right? And in high school too, I remember teachers and friends would say, hey, yeah, instead of sleep is for the week. Exactly. Sleep is for the weak. And that is not true, right?
You need your sleep.
You need your sleep, right? And I think maybe now we feel like because we're getting older, but
young at heart.
No, we're young at heart, but that's really bad advice. I remember we need to spend nights at the library studying till 2-3 a.m., right? Yeah. And, you got to do that, 7 days a week to be the quote unquote smartest person in the room, right? Or the hardest worker. But that takes a toll on us. And we may not see it now, but a few years down the road, that may manifest in many other ways. And so I think it's important to really try to work on having a balance, right? And it's not easy. It's really hard, and I'm struggling with that, right? It's something that I'm working on, like I mentioned. But I wanted to share that there's lots of bad advice out there on having to work all the time, on hustle mentality, that while it may seem flashy, know that it may not be true, right? And take it with a grain of salt, right? Mm-hmm. Now, I'm not saying that working hard is bad. I think I'm just trying to point out that it's as important to also invest time in your personal life, in your health, in your personal relationships, and in things that you do outside of work, so that you lead a more fulfilling life, right? Especially with everything that's going on in the world nowadays.
So that you can continue to keep working hard. Like you were saying, like there's nothing wrong with working hard. Like
No.
that does provide some results.
Yeah, and I think that's what's instilled in us from our parents, maybe our grandparents. Course. At least that was my case, that my grandparents worked really hard, right? They had a small restaurant that then they grew. It was a Chinese food restaurant, and then they opened more. But my grandparents were working like 7 days a week.
Yeah.
Right? From like maybe 7 a.m. all the way till midnight.
Yeah.
Every single day of the week. Right? And it's a routine they would do, right? Yeah. That's not sustainable. Right? Yeah. That's really, really hard. And so, that's something that I think a lot about. Something I don't take for granted either, right? Through their sacrifice and their hard work, yes, thanks to them, like a lot of what we have now and the opportunities we have now is because of their initial sacrifice, right? Sure. So it's something that, like I said, I think when feeling like you're having a rough day or challenging day, it's important to think about our ancestors, because I know they also had it really hard. Yeah. Right? And they may potentially had less resources than we have now. But also take care of yourself. Like it's not easy dealing with these things. And it's a journey at the end of the day, right? Some of them weeks we may have to work longer than other weeks, but it's a journey, and or you're not alone,
And you always remind me, although we have different journeys, there's nothing wrong with my own personal journey, right? You say that all the time. Sometimes I feel like I'm behind or I'm not doing enough. And you say like, hey, it's your life, it's your journey. Don't compare that to anyone else's. There's no one right way of living life, right? It's your own path. So just enjoy it as much as you can. Be kind to yourself. And like you were saying, hard work has allowed us to be where we are. And the message is not like not to work hard.
Right. Yes, very clearly. The message is not to not work hard.
But what we're saying is prioritize, if you're able to, your health, because
that will help you
continue to work hard. Honestly, there's so many people that are burnt out. Like
that's another topic for another day. Yes. But yeah, burnout is real.
It's wild that we still haven't changed the system and changed the ways that we work to allow people to have a better life, a healthier life. I guess what I hope for the future is to live in a world where we can work and our works provide us with enough money to live a comfortable life for everybody, and also have time for our personal life and for things that bring us joy outside of work. Like you were saying, the story about your grandparents, they worked 7 days a week. They worked their asses off, right? Yeah. But at the expense of what?
Their health, family, relationships, right?
They sacrificed a lot.
Yeah.
They sacrificed a lot.
Yeah, work for them was kind of life, right? That's what the only thing that they had going, right?
If you feel like your work is impacting your health, definitely know that your health takes priority. If you are able to take time off work, take it, because without health, we can't do anything. My mom always reminds me of that. She's like, you need to be healthy to work. So I really appreciate her reminding me.
Yeah, health is our fuel. It's like the number one thing, right? There is this quote, you will hear if you ever traveled or you ride an airplane, is like you have to put your oxygen mask first in case of an emergency, right? Before putting it on an infant or a child, right? And so I think that applies very well to health, right? Take care of yourself, so that then in the future you can help others as well, right? We cannot help people if we're not well. Like I think that's very important. It's simple, right? We cannot help people if we are not well, but if we take care of ourselves, we can help others, right? And so I think that's something that I've learned, maybe the hard way too, right? I think there's times where I haven't eaten during a day because I'm working, or I eat at my desk, right? Where I have not been sleeping well, I still push through. And at the end of the day, what has happened is sometimes I may end up not feeling well, and then eventually you end up in the emergency room, right? Or you end up fainting. At least that's what has happened to me a few times, right? And that's terrible, right? And then it impacts everyone around me. It impacts you, my friends, my family members, my parents, right? And so I think it's important to take care of yourself, so that you can continue doing what you want to do, exploring your passions, and know that life is an adventure. I think that's what one friend shared with me recently. Like, life is full of wonders, right? So we want to continue exploring what's out there. But to do that, we need good health. And so make sure to take care of yourself.
Yeah, that was really rough when you fainted, and that was really scary. But that was a big reminder, like, hey, Dante, don't forget to eat. Don't forget to drink water. Take care of yourself to be able to take care of others. I always tell Dante, and I'll close with this, I say, I'm a little plant. I need some sun. I need some water. I need some good food. And that's what you need to be healthy and to live on. Yeah,
but to bring it back then, work-life balance, we talked about our journeys, about how we learned about the bad things of prioritizing work over life through school. We talked about tips on what has helped us get through really tough and challenging weeks. And then we shared some personal stories as well, of how we have, how we have coped with work, with stressful days, right? Which we hope, these stories and this advice is something you can relate to, and hopefully helps you in some sort of way.
Yeah. Tough times don't last, but tough people do. La vida es una, so make sure to take care of yourself. Sending you lots of love. Thank you for tuning in today. It was a really good conversation, I think.
Yeah, that was fun. Let us know how you think about work-life balance, what has helped you, what your experience has been with this, and know that you're not alone. See you next time. Thanks for tuning in, and treat yourself.
Bye. Love you guys.
Bye.
That's a wrap.
That's a wrap.